What is up? 2 weeks ago,
What is up?
Jake, we fought dinosaurs with everyone.
We did.
We had the whole crew here. The following week, we realized that 2 velociraptors took them out. And it was just me, you, and Andrew. And we took on Jaws. Then we realized Bruce the shark ate Andrew. And now
Andrew got eaten.
Now it's me and you. And we have to make a baseball team.
Ah, shit.
We watched Moneyball this week.
Where do we start?
We watched Moneyball this week. We're huge baseball and sports fans. If you've listened to other podcasts, you've heard me bitch and cheer about the Dodgers. And I have had this plan that we're doing Moneyball for opening day for about 6 months now. And I was just like, hey, I'm just saving it. Jake, you read the book. This is the first time you watched it. What did you think about it?
I really enjoyed it. I read the book. How long ago was that? 2 to 3 years ago now. So maybe not quite that long. It was like a year and a half maybe, but it's been a while. I couldn't remember a lot of the details. I had to look some stuff up afterwards, but I know the movie wasn't 100% accurate to what actually happened in real life, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good time. Maybe a little bit of bias there since I'm actually an A's fan, but I thought it was super cool. I loved. I love the kind of mix of math and sports, and I think that this movie is a good highlight on that.
It really is. This is the movie that's like most up my wheelhouse of any movie we've done so far, where it's like, hey, you like sports, Mason? Here's baseball. Like, okay. And then it was like, here's a bunch of statistics about baseball because you like understanding numbers about fun things. I'm like, okay, I'm in it. And then it's like, oh, and it's real. So then I'm like, after the movie, I'm running out and I'm watching everything. I'm going to go look up everything. And I was so disappointed to find out when I first watched this how much was actually like true or not. And then realizing like the research, like it's all true. They just forced it in this small time period where it was really over like 3 seasons.
Right.
Which, whatever, that's fine. Like every movie does that, and I'm realizing that the older I get. But
it's basically the slightly Hollywood version of what actually happened. But
man,
it's really not that far off.
No, it's not. But it's just a good movie. It's fun. I never thought watching a montage of walks would be pretty cool. I was like, it's a good...
Leave it to Billy Bean to make walks sexy.
But like, this is like one of the first movies I can remember where like we were alive. And I don't know if you were watching baseball yet, but like I watched those playoffs, and I remember like them losing to the Twins. It was the Angels-Giants World Series. That was a huge deal because I had a family member that just moved down to Anaheim. So that whole season I really remember. And then knowing like, oh, this is a story about that, and not knowing any of the backstory about how they made their money, not understanding budgets of teams, I was like, this is really cool. And then it made me realize at that moment I'll probably never be able to be a GM. Just cause
that's what did it for you.
That's a lot of. I'm not very organized. It's not a strong suit of mine. There's a lot of organization. I was like, yeah, nope, not happening. But let's get into the summary of the movie. It is 2001 season. Derek Jeter makes his game-saving tag play to beat the A's in the playoffs, which is like Derek Jeter's all-time highlight. The A's lose 3 key.
Maybe I missed it. Did they show that play in the movie?
No, they don't. And I don't know.
Okay, I was like, Derek Jeter's going to ruin this. And then they never showed it. And I was like, was I thinking of the wrong season?
No, that's the right one. The best part was, as I was going back and doing research, I found out that the A's lost to the Yankees 3 years in a row in that series, or in that same round. And then this season, they're like, oh, hey, we don't have to play the Yankees this year. And then they just end up losing to the Twins.
Yeah, it's just the same story again with the team.
But they find that, and then Billy Bean has to put together a new team replacing 3 of his best players. He then finds Jonah Hill, who's a made-up character, but is based off a real guy who just didn't want his name in the movie.
Yeah, it's all, well, not exactly the same.
Close enough. And Jonah Hill, and the first time I think I ever saw him serious, talks about how you need to buy runs and wins, not by players, and how that changes the way not only baseball works, but like all sports. This has now just filtered down through every sport, and I think that's part of the reason this movie works so well.
Right.
So it goes through that. The A's go on this crazy long win streak during the movie, finally adopting what Billy Beane has been preaching with Jonah Hill the whole season, that you just need to get on base, and it makes people uncomfortable. Runs will be scored, and then we end the movie with a player who was kind of down on his luck, had elbow surgery, coming up with the biggest home run of the season. They extend their win streak to 20 games and owning the record until just recently when the Minnesota Twins did it. Or not the Minnesota Twins, the Cleveland Indians broke it a couple years ago.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And that's like a Moneyball did another huge resurgence when that happened. Everyone's like, oh, let's go watch Moneyball again. But this movie sat on Netflix for crazy long time. And I think I watched it like 8 times when it was on Netflix.
Really?
It's just such a good, it's an easy watch. I enjoy it. There's nothing wrong with it. Like, there's not a bad part about it. Yeah. And it just, a lot of the talk, especially baseball, when we were growing up playing baseball, like it's so accurate to how people talk when you're talking about a baseball player.
Oh, yeah.
I just loved it. So let's get in the box of chocolates. Best line in the movie. Brad Pitt saying how you cannot get romantic about baseball. When it was at the end of the movie, a minor league player hits a home run. He never tries to extend.
Was that minors? I thought that was like a college player that they were.
No, it was recruiting. A AA player, and their Visalia team. Remember, he was going to Visalia to watch this guy play.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Which I think was 6 weeks earlier, so he missed that play but saw his team's winning.
Gotcha.
And the guy gets a hit, doesn't know it's a home run, takes off, is decided he's going to try and make a single into a double, trips over himself, which is the worst thing ever. I've done it so many times. Hustles back to the bag when he's on the ground, realizes he hits a home run, and it's just about taking chances. And then Billy Beane says, how do you not get romantic about baseball? And I just think it's great because it really sums up the whole movie of he took a chance on this idea that's just everyone's reaction to this idea is incredibly logical. But, like, looking back at it now, like, how could you not just look at these weird stats and be like, this makes sense?
See, I disagree with that, actually.
Really?
Their reaction to it is not logical, is the whole issue. Billy Beans and, I need to know this other guy's name. Peter Brand, like you said, that's not his name in real life. It's based off of Paul De Podesta, but Peter Brand is the movie character. Billy Beane and Peter Brand, their idea is logical. And the issue is baseball is a sport that's built in hundreds of years of tradition, and logic does not have a place in baseball. Before these guys did this, their thinking of how to evaluate players is based on what you see, subjective observations, not real actual logic. It's just kind of disguised as logic, but...
It's just we were in this, like, during this movie, it's the height of the steroid era. So everyone's batting like 300, hitting like 35 home runs a year because they're all on roids. And, like, you would never think of a guy just being like, especially like bunts now. I remember we used to have bunting drills after bunting drills growing up and playing.
Oh, yeah.
And now I guarantee you they would be like, oh, we got to practice bunts one time just so you don't get hit in the face with a ball. But no one ever practices bunts anymore. No one steals bases anymore. It's just
because they're not gonna get you more runs. They're gonna get you less.
And it was such a weird way to look at it. And it's really just like any movie where you're seeing someone create something new and something out of the ordinary. It's just a different way to look at it. And I understand why everyone was like, no, this isn't gonna work.
Yeah,
but
it makes sense.
Literally, this past World Series with the Dodgers, like how many times they had a huge inning when a guy just walked, and like what it does to like every player's psyche when you're like, oh, people are on base now. It's a weird thing to think about, but yet every team does it now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think it's that. I think it's just not getting out is the most valuable thing you can do. It literally doesn't matter what you do as long as you don't get out. That's all you have to do to score a run.
And that's like, I went, this team, like, they still have a bunch of, like, really big hitters on this team that they don't ever mention. Like, they say them in name and, like, passing. But I went and looked, and the team as a whole the year before stole, like, almost 100 bases, and Johnny Damon had, like, 30 of them. And they lose Damon, who was one of their big three players, and then I went and looked up their stats, and I'm pretty sure that Damon had more stolen bases than the entire team the following year.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
Probably.
This is just so weird. And to think that at the end of the movie, he turns down the Red Sox job because he doesn't think the Red Sox will let him do it. But Theo Epstein, who became the Red Sox GM and then the Cubs GM and broke their 2 long curses, was just like, Billy Beane's doing this with no money. You give me basically an unlimited amount of money on the Red Sox, I can do the exact same thing. And
well, I don't think that's why he turned it down. I think he turned it down to be near his daughter.
it was his daughter, and then he didn't think that they would let him do the same thing. He was concerned that with money it wouldn't work, but it just works better.
Oh, no, that just makes it work even easier. There's much more room for error when you actually have money.
It was such an outside-the-box thinking. Like, I can understand when people are like, oh, that works, that's cute when you have no money, but you have money now, go pay for players.
Yeah.
Which, like, I guess in hindsight, you still want the best player. Like, no one's going to say no to having Mike Trout on their team.
I mean, yeah, you definitely want, your Mookie Bettses and Mike Trouts, like, you want them if you can afford them. You'd be stupid not to. They're going to be better than everyone else. It's just getting as much mileage out of no money as possible. Obviously, you can't. Probably, I bet Mookie Betts' salary is like the entire salary of the A's back in this time.
Oh, 100%. It's, I think it was like $39 million was their salary.
Somewhere around there, yeah. It was, less than $50 million.
Dak Prescott just signed a contract for the Dallas Cowboys, and he makes more money a year than the Oakland A's payroll that year.
Right.
That's just
I mean,
stupid.
Of course, it's, 20 years later, but still.
It's still stupid.
Yeah, it is. And that's a sport that has a salary cap.
When they were talking about the salary, like their salaries, when they're trying to replace all the guys in the scouts room, and Brad Pitt, a.k.a. Billy Beane, goes, there's the New York Yankees, there's the poor teams, there's 50 piles of crap, and then there's us. May not be the most accurate representation of the Oakland A's as an organization that with not paying anyone, and yet somehow they're always around 80 wins. I don't understand it. It drives me absolutely insane. I don't ever remember a time when they're just bad. They're just always like, the A's are pretty good. And that's like this movie perfectly describes why.
Well, I think right before Billy Beane went there and started doing it, I think that was the case. They were really terrible because, and dang it, I closed the tab. I was researching this earlier. In like the early 90s, like 91 or something, 90 or 91, somewhere in that range, maybe 89, the A's had like the highest payroll in baseball. And then their ownership changed, and their new ownership was putting no money into it. So I think right when the new ownership took over and their salary cap or the amount of money they were paying went way down, I think they were just absolutely terrible.
Because I know they went to the World Series in 88 and 89.
And and during that time they had like the highest payroll in baseball.
And I think they went again in 91. I want to say
something like that.
No, they didn't. They made it to the championship series and lost to the Blue Jays in 91. This is just going to show off how much useless baseball knowledge I remembered as a kid.
I was going to say, I think you know more about the A's World Series years than I do.
Up until about 2010, I know a lot of baseball history, and then after that, I became an adult-ish and had more.
Yeah, I know baseball history after 2010.
Yeah.
When I actually started paying attention.
No, it was my life. Yeah, but you don't ever think of that. I didn't know they had changed ownerships, and that's why they had no money. I always just thought. Yeah. But they sucked, but they had a really good farm system and a crazy pitching staff that was coming up.
Yeah. So that's actually one thing that they did not talk about in the movie at all. Maybe I just missed it, but I don't think they brought it up.
No, they didn't bring it up at all.
In the book they talked about drafting and evaluating like high school and college players. They talked about that a lot in the book, and that was a big part of what Billy Beane and
Paul or whatever his name is,
Peter Brand were doing. Yeah, was also evaluating people to draft.
Because like we talked about it before we jumped on. I think before we jumped on, John B, one of the guys they lose, was the MVP in 2000. Then 2001, he was in the MVP race. They had two guys in the Cy Young race that year. The following year, in 2002, when this movie takes place, their shortstop, Miguel Tejada, who, if you're like, who is that? He is the guy who is celebrating every hit/home run in like the real videos of the A's. He was their shortstop. He was like in his third year. He won MVP that year. Batted like 330, 37 home runs, 130 RBIs. Just absolutely killed it. They had Barry Zito, who was in his third year. Had the craziest curveball I've ever seen in my life until Kershaw. Won 23 games. Had a 2.75 ERA. And then they have Billy Cush.
And I'm pretty sure he won the Cy Young that
he
year.
did. And the 2 years before that, Mark Mulder, who was also on this staff, won the Cy Young in 2000, I want to say, 2001. And he also had like 15 wins. Like this, they leave out a lot of important parts, which makes sense. But I really would have liked the whole span of Billy Beane. I know that for a movie you got to do like a year,
right?
But it would have been cool to see them start evaluating these guys and like making them more important to the movie itself, and like have the
which they do talk about in the book a lot more.
Should I read it?
And their system for evaluating, college or high school draft prospects was similar to what they were doing with major league players. They just weren't, working trades for them. They were just drafting people who other teams thought, why the hell are you drafting this guy so early? He's not that good. And then 5 years later, he turned out to be.
Yeah. And they've just continued to do that because everyone that comes out of the A's that is an all-star, it was in like 5 years, gets a $100 million contract from someone.
Right. I mean, like they said in the movie, they're the Yankees minor league team.
Which is so funny. You have a line.
I do, yes. Oops, just minimized it. 1 second. I do have a line, yes. Okay, so this was when Billy Beane was talking to that head scout guy who, like, right before he fired him, basically. And the scout said to Billy Beane, you can't put a team together on a computer. Baseball isn't just numbers. It's not science. If it was, then anybody could do it. And basically, they can't. Only we can, because we're these special scouts. I just think that line is so funny because it totally summarizes what baseball thought at the time when Billy Beane was doing this, and also summarizes basically exactly what Billy Beane was trying to do, is reduce everything down to a formula, essentially, which he basically did pretty darn successfully. And now the entire MLB does that.
Everyone does it.
And it's, like you said earlier, it's leaking into other sports too. Not to the extent that baseball does it, but every team in the majors evaluates and puts together teams with a computer now.
It's just crazy, and I feel like it...
And like you said, the World Sox won a World Series.
Yeah, I feel like it's so crazy that it works so well in baseball, but also baseball is the most individual team sport there is, that it makes sense.
It's more isolated for sure.
It makes sense of why it works so well.
Yeah. Well, I think it would work to that extent in other team sports also. It's just easier in baseball because individual stats are just like, a batter versus one pitcher. It's not like what the quarterback does affects what the wide receiver does kind of thing.
That's a good point. Continuing with...
Go ahead.
Continuing with the scouts. That whole scene, the first scene with Jonah Hill, Peter Brand character, and they're sitting in there and they're bringing up players, and one of the scout names a player, and then the guy goes, oh, he has an ugly girlfriend, it means no confidence. I audibly laughed out loud because, like...
Yeah, I thought that was funny.
I've heard sayings like that, and, like, it's oddly true. Not the whole ugly girlfriend thing, because she could be a lovely person, and we're not trying to demoralize anyone. But the fact that like the really good players always have this weird swag to them, where they like, if they look, it's literally the saying was, you look good, you feel good, you feel good, you play good, and
ooze confidence,
and it oozes out of him. And baseball is such a headspace of a sport. Like if you just walk out there with that confidence. And then I think it was funny, they basically said that again. It's sort of like when if he arrives to a party, his dick gets there 2 minutes before the rest of them does, which is just the grossest thing to think about. But it was really funny because it's like, that's a good way to show you're confident, I guess. But I just love that scene because it made me think of baseball and like as a whole. And like they said one thing, like you hear the sound of the ball jumping off the bat. Mm-hmm. And then, like, oddly enough, the most important scene in the movie when Chris Pratt, I can't think of the guy's name right now, hits a home run. It's the sound of the bat that gets everyone's attention. Like,
right.
These guys know what they're talking about, and you can tell they know what they're talking about, but they're still inside the box when you need to look outside of the box for everything. Right. And I love that it kind of was a mixture of both at that point. Which I thought was pretty cool. Are you looking up the guy's name? He played second base.
Yeah, Scott Hattenberg.
Scott Hattenberg, who also played 152 games and batted .289 this season. Also, he was a good hitter. He was a good offensive player. They never said that he wasn't. That's why they won. It was just so I went and looked at his stats and like he was declining, and then the A's were like, "Hey, just go play first base," and all of a sudden for like the next 4 years he's batting .280 again.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah. And it was...
Get on base. That's all you got to do.
It was just so funny. That was the first one. Because, like, this is Chris Pratt during Parks and Rec. He's kind of a nerd still. You don't really know Chris Pratt as Star-Lord, Jurassic World Chris Pratt. I'm Jack. Yeah. And like, he kind of gives off the nerdy, I'm not supposed to be playing vibe. And then I go find out that this guy was a stud. And I was like, oh, that kind of sucks. This guy was like their Justin Turner, is what I got from it.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah, it made me laugh out loud.
Well, God dang it, I keep getting my wrong tab. The Peter Brand character, we mentioned that he was not 100% accurate. I did a little research on the person that he's supposed to represent, which is Paul DePesta. He apparently... They play him off in the movie like he's some like nerdy, dorky dude. He was not like that. He played college football and was just... They definitely downplayed his, I guess, athleticism and charisma kind of in the movie, which is kind of interesting.
I wonder if they downplayed it because he didn't want to be in the movie or what?
Yeah. Apparently he didn't want his like name or his like image basically in the movie. So I wonder if... Yeah, you might be right. They had to like change up his personality a bit to say that it wasn't him, basically. But obviously, all the sabermetric, math, analytical things that he was talking about were all things that he was talking about in real life.
I mean, Billy Bean's probably super excited that for the rest of his life he gets to be in the same sentence as Brad Pitt.
You think so?
Yeah. When everyone's like, "Oh, you mean the guy that Brad Pitt played in Moneyball?" He's like, "Yeah, that's me."
You think he gets pumped about that?
I would. People when they think of me, they might think of Brad Pitt from this movie. Like, yeah. I think
if I was in Billy Bean's shoes, I'd be more excited about the people who knew Billy Bean for being a GM than the people who knew Brad Pitt for playing him.
This is Brad Pitt for playing him is like a general audience. Everyone who's in sports knows who Billy Bean is.
Right.
So I think
that's true.
I think that like, hey, you've made millions of dollars being one of the greatest and most influential GMs in all of sports. Like you're going to go down in history forever. And oh yeah, also you're characterized by Brad Pitt for every general audience person to watch for the rest of the time. Bonus. Like that's awesome. That's like if I had Tom Cruise play me for the rest of my life, and I'm like, yeah,
I'm sure you'd love that.
I'd actually prefer Brad Pitt over Tom Cruise. Do you have any more quotes?
No, I don't think I do.
Real moments, the emotional moments that got you. This movie had a lot.
Oh,
this was it was way more emotional moments.
I was kind of surprised
than quotes. I really realized that the father-daughter scene. I'm a sucker for any scene with a parent. It's like
pretty much all the father-daughter kind of highlights they had in here were pretty good.
Especially because that's is a big part of why he stayed with A's. Like, his daughter was important to him, and I was like, that's really sweet, and I like that, and I like that she's kind of his grounding rock, and she's watching everything and asking her dad's questions, and he's like, you can tell that he's a little off, and she's just saying it like, oh, you do seem nervous.
Yeah. I did a little research because I was curious. You know, obviously in the movie they really make his daughter out to be the big reason why he turned down the Red Sox. I was curious if that was real or if that was just the movie version of what happened. But I was doing a little research on it. He had an interview much more recently, like last year, where they basically were like, do you regret not going to Boston, you know, considering that they've won a few World Series since you turned them down with other GMs who basically copied what you were doing? And he said no, he didn't regret it at all because he got to be, you know, more involved in his daughter's life when she was a teenager because of that. So turns out that was really what he was all about. Well, sticking around for his daughter.
He's our parents' age. He's only 58, which is super young to be like a GM and like running all these things. Like at the time of this movie, he just turned 40.
Yeah, he was clearly younger than all of his colleagues.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
And I thought that was really like that is a big part. Like what, in 2002 we were in second grade. You can just say his daughter's around our age. I don't know if he only has one kid or whatever daughter this was. She was around our age. So like second grade till when you graduate high school is kind of an important period of a kid's life.
Yeah.
So I think I was like, that's actually really cool, and I'm glad that it's true and not just made for the movie.
Yeah, same. I thought the same thing.
The whole realizing Jonah Hill talking about how you need to replace runs and everything. Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute. We have an incoming trade. This is about to become a 3-person pod. He's coming. Hold on 1 second. Is that Ricardo Rincon? Oh, no, wait. It's Jordan Cabins with a tie.
Hey,
what's up, man?
Fashionably late. But, you know, I made it. That's what matters.
No, we did a mid-season trade to join you.
Ooh, wait. Who do you guys trade for? What was the trade?
We bought you for cash.
How much cash?
$40.
Cash and a couple minor leaguers.
I thought it would have been worth at least $45.
No, you're not. Insurance money, maybe, but not a full 45. And thanks, neighbors, dogs. We're currently in the real moments.
Maybe if you take a few more walks, you can get up to 45.
Ooh. Don't strike out as often. The whole realizing that they can build a team within their means scene with Jonah Hill and talking about how you need to, well, we brought it up already, you need to replace runs, you don't need to replace players. Like, you're buying runs, not players. It's just the fact that it is baseball now as a whole. I think we'll keep saying about how much this is made baseball. It's just so cool to hear him talk about it, because it also, if you aren't a huge baseball fan, this is a great way of describing what they're doing without going into the numbers details. Where I think the possible going in straight to the numbers would throw someone off.
That's a good point. Actually, they really did not talk a lot about the actual like analytics and statistics at all in the movie, which they did go a little bit more into detail about in the book, which I appreciate, but I mean, maybe not a lot of other people do.
It makes sense why they do it in the book, because most of the people who are picking up the book are probably a huge fan of baseball and know what
interested in the analytics
OPS, slugging, the WAR, and all those other things. Like, no one's going to get confused by that. I guarantee you some of the numbers I just threw out, if someone's not a big baseball fan earlier, like when I was explaining Miguel Tejada's stats, they're going to be like, what is he talking about? Sorry, I apologize for that. But I just thought that was really cool. It was a good scene. It was the one time, like, we're introduced to Jonah Hill, at this point, he's still super bad Jonah Hill. We just think he's funny. And then, like, it was a moment where I was like, do I take him seriously as, like, a person who knows numbers? And then he starts talking, and I'm like, hey, yeah, no, I believe it. I'm buying this now.
Yeah, I love that scene.
It was great.
I thought that was it almost seemed like when he put it that way, like you're buying runs because you're buying wins. You get wins by scoring runs. Like it almost seems like so obvious. Like how did no one before these guys think this way? Like
it was all about
how do so many people think about buying a name rather than runs?
It was all about the big name player, and then how many times have we seen you'll have a team get hot at the right time, doing everything statistically right, and make a World Series run. And you're like, who the hell is this team? What do they do? Like, where do they come from?
Also, names do sell tickets and commercials.
You know what also sells tickets is when your team's good.
Yeah, that is true. It takes a little bit longer though. That takes until the end of the season.
I also think that's for every sport.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well,
actually, weirdly, I don't remember if it was Moneyball. It might have been a different sport-related book I was reading. But speaking of selling tickets, apparently for the Cubs, the Chicago Cubs,
go Cubs, go!
Ticket sales are more closely correlated to beer prices than they are to winning. So that's why they went to 100 years without winning a World Series. It's because their fans prefer cheap beer over World Series.
Wrigley Field is just surrounded by bars.
Wrigleyville, baby.
Yeah, and that's like I went to a bunch of baseball stadiums growing up as a kid, and we were like, let's go to Wrigley. And my dad always was like, no, you have to be 21 to go to Wrigley to get the full effect of Wrigley.
It's all about the beer. They don't actually give a shit about winning baseball games.
That's what he said. He goes, no matter how bad the Cubs were, it's always sold out, and everyone's always having a great time. And I was like, you know what? More people...
It's because they put the beer on discount.
More people need to live their life like the Cubs fan lived their life.
I mean, preach, Mason. And I have to say, for those of you who probably don't know this, but the Cubs are my favorite team. And the best hot dog I've ever had in my life was at Wrigley Field, too. But I was like 12 then, so... Yeah, they beat the
Cubs
Pirates.
Win that game?
Probably not.
Yeah, they did.
When we were 12, they were pretty crappy.
No, they were pretty crappy.
I was really hoping
24,
you were going to say I don't remember.
Not quite. No, until I was like 21. How old was I in 2016? Actually, 2014. Whatever. But you get it. It's been tough, but it's worth
some
it.
number of years.
Well, we were born in '94, so you were either 20 or 22.
Yeah.
Because you said 16 or 14.
Well, they won the World Series in 16, but they were good in 15. So, and Chris Bryant from the 702 got a rep. So it's all about the Cubbies. Go Cubs, go! Great song, right, Mason?
No, it's not. It's not at all.
It's not at all.
The scene when Brad Pitt is turning the radio on and off at the opening, or when he's working out and he keeps turning the sound on and off on the TV, and the team's about to lose, and he's just waiting for it to inevitably happen. I may or may not have lived this for the last 8 years of my life until 2020, having the Dodgers knowing they're going to lose that game at the end of it every time, and I would just turn off the TV and then turn it back on and then turn it off and turn it on, waiting to see the last out. And then just was like, oh, the last out's coming, and I turned off the TV before I actually saw it. And then I'd call Lauren, and then we would just bitch about everything that went wrong, and then we'd be sad together. But this year, we called each other and we celebrated, almost in tears. Do you guys agree?
Yeah.
I just that was the most fan moment I think I've ever seen in my life in a movie. I was like, yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I still haven't seen the final out of the 2018 World Series. Which one was it? The Astros?
Oh, I just watched that after the Dodgers won the World Series. The Dodgers won the World Series.
You finally can go back and watch it.
I got one now. One was stolen from me by a trash can. One they deserved to lose, even though apparently the Red Sox were cheating then, but the Red Sox were going to win anyway. That one I came to grips with. And
well, the kind of interesting thing about that, and tell me if you think I'm talking about the book too much.
No, I was going to ask you a whole question about the book, so you're just going to take the question away.
Well, yeah, I think it's relevant because the book gives I mean, obviously they have more time and more space to give more background, but they do explain a lot of these things that the movie just simply can't fit in. I mean, it's already like a 2 hour and 20-minute movie.
Was it?
Was it that long?
I don't
Maybe
know.
I was just. I thought it was something like that.
It's the first movie we've done in a while where I didn't watch the runtime, and I just enjoyed every minute of it.
Yeah, it didn't seem that long, but I thought it was 2 hours 13 minutes. So it was
not bad.
Fairly long, but not terribly long. But obviously, it's getting up there. You can't fit in all these details, but anyway, yeah, Billy Beane hated watching the games. Like they talked about that a lot in the book, is he was like just so stressed and anxious every time he watched a game that he just didn't. Like they showed him like working out during a game. That's what he would do. He would just like go work out while the team was playing the game in the team gym, not watching the game at all, and then go on with his business after the game was over.
He worked out for like 4 hours straight because that's insane.
I'm sure it wasn't like working out hard all the way through. He probably took rests and like turned on the radio or something like that.
No wonder they had to get Brad Pitt to look like him in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, that makes sense. Billy Beane must have been jacked.
Yeah, he probably was jacked. He was probably working out a shit ton because of that.
The whole scene when he's talking to the old guy that they got from the Yankees, and the guy was
in the batting
cages. He was like, I never seen a GM talk to a player like this before, and he was like, well, because I am a player. It's crazy to think how many, like, you either have the Peter Brand character who's a guy who knows his numbers and knows his stats as a GM now, or it's a player who's accepted that the stats work. Like, there's no in between of just some guy who's like, hey, I like both of these. It's either you're a pure stats guy or you were a player who has now embraced stats. And I thought that was kind of a cool moment.
Yeah, I agree. I like that. That was a cool conversation. Just kind of the melding of their 2 points of view. And then it was kind of funny how immediately afterwards that player went and was like asking Brad Pitt's character what his worst fear was.
Chris Pratt, you mean?
Yeah, what did I say?
Brad Pitt.
Oh,
Brad
Chris
Pitt's
Pratt.
worst fear in this movie is not having his hair perfectly lined
I
up.
thought you were going to say, like, watching the television.
No, that wasn't it.
That's second.
Yeah. Also, the whole you have to buy a soda for $1 being an Oakland A's was the second most Oakland A's thing that happened in this movie.
I don't know if that was real, but yeah, that was my thought too. Like, that is such an Oakland A's thing.
I guarantee you it is real.
Also, hilarious that he includes in a trade soda for 3 years for the players.
Oh, yeah. Okay, speaking of, we'll go to trades right now, because this is a question I have for later, but I'll bring it up now because we brought up trades. If you meet a guy and he gives you a spiel, and you give him a spiel about how you need to do whatever Jonah Hill says to Brad Pitt, it was like, you need to buy runs and wins, not players. And then the guy calls you up and says, hey, when would you have drafted me? And you shit on him and say, I would have taken you in the 9th round, not the 1st round, and given you no signing bonus because you're average. And then he goes, that's what I thought. Pack your bags. I just bought you from the Cleveland Indians. How would you feel?
As which character?
Jonah Hill. You just got bought.
Oh,
Super
I would
dope.
complete opposite.
I think
the way he phrased it, I'm just like, being bought? That's really weird. Am I just like an item and necessity?
No. See, I think I would be pumped in that moment to be him, because he just got bought by the only GM in all of sports who understands and listens to what he's saying and has been trying to say for years. The guy who this guy, well, in the movie it wasn't for years, but the guy who this character is based on, it was for years. So he went a long time of saying these things which he knows is right, and clearly they show in this movie and in real life that this works, but he's ignored by everyone else. And this GM just went out of his way to pay money to get him on his team, basically. So yeah, I'd be pumped.
Jordan?
Yeah, so I agree with you, Drake, but also I think as like an employee, for my employers to just be like, yeah, take him. Like, fuck you. Like, damn, like, I'd be pissed. Like, you just are just gonna give me up like that? Like, don't you? Yeah,
so you'd be
I'd
pissed
be
at the
pissed.
Indians.
I'd just be like, how dare you? And then I also, because like I'm like
Or the Cleveland baseball team.
Actually, never mind. You're right. I'd be happy to be leaving Cleveland. Too,
Are they the baseball team now? I thought they were I thought they were the Tribe.
No, I'm making a joke. They're gonna change their name, but they did come out and say they're not gonna call themselves the Cleveland baseball team, like the Washington football team did.
I know they changed their logo. I didn't know they were gonna change their name.
Too.
Yeah,
this
they're
is
going
gonna be the
to.
last
I don't
year
think it's
that
gonna
they're
be this
the,
year, but
the Cleveland Indians, and then next year there'll be something
the
different.
Indians. Yeah,
I will say
they haven't decided yet.
The giant logo of the Cleveland Indians. I now understand it. Never as a kid. You know, you just see stuff and you just kind of grow up and you get used to it. And then like they changed to their C logo, which is a dope ass logo, and I love that hat. But seeing it just a giant,
just like the Red Sea.
Yeah, which thing it's just such a clean look. But the giant logo when he's taking the first interview, I was like, wow, that's a lot. And
no kidding.
I used to really like the logo. Because I was just like, it's kind of cool and fun, and then I see it now, I was like, I understand why people are upset about it.
You've grown, Mason.
I have. It took 26 years, but it happened.
Hey, better late than never.
That's what I'm saying. I'm a work in progress. What are you gonna say,
I just
Jordan?
Googled the logo because I haven't seen it in years. And yeah, you're right. I never I know like it's really strange because like a family friend of mine, I had this logo just like in front of their house all the time because they're such big Indian fans. So like I know exactly what it is, but I've never looked at it like with these eyes, I guess you could say. And fuck, like that's horrible.
I think it's different than the Washington football team's old logo because that one's just kind of like a mugshot, and then like the name Redskin, it's just that one's way worse. And in Indian, it's not great, but like it's like, oh, whatever. And then that logo, it was just a happy smiley guy, didn't think anything of it. And then now I'm like, damn,
not great.
Why do I have to grow? Why can't I just be naive and ignore it all again? Oh, go back to 2002. Simpler times.
Because nothing would ever get better, Mason.
Golden Ticket, best part of the movie. What's going to bring you back? Stats and Brad Pitt.
Wait, you skipped my real moment.
Oh, my bad.
Come back.
We rewinded.
Yeah, my last real moment when Billy Bean gave that whole spiel about saying like what they're doing. It's not about money. It's not about
winning
rings. It's about changing the game. And
little did he know, not only did he change,
he absolutely did.
He not only changed baseball, he changed basketball,
sports.
He changed football, he changed hockey. I don't know.
He changed literally every game that has been played ever since this movie took place. Because I think
did he change?
I think even outside of sports, I think every game people look at it with a more analytical, statistical eye than they used to.
There's no way they didn't. Like he didn't.
Like you could probably even look to like, I mean, I don't follow professional chess or anything like that, but even like chess or like other strategy games, I'm sure it's the same kind of thing.
Wait, I thought, God, what's the Queen Gambit's girl's name?
Anna.
I missed it.
What?
I was gonna say the Queen's Gambit girl's name.
Yeah, what was her name?
Whatever. It doesn't matter. Wrong thing. But I was gonna say she was using Billy Bean's system to beat the Russians in chess. All right, we're gonna go to the Golden Ticket. Best part of the movie. I'll say it again. Stats and Brad Pitt, and specifically the scene when they lose, and they're all celebrating, and he just takes the bat to the stereo, and then just does like the bat flip to the corner. It's the only time in the whole movie.
It shatters 4 other things.
Yeah, the only time in the whole movie I was like, oh, Brad Pitt could be an athlete. I was like, I believe that he's an athlete. It's just how he flicks the bat. I was just like, yeah, I get that. That's a power move right there. That was bat flip before bat flips were a thing.
That was the OG bat flip, an anger flip.
I wouldn't say it's the OG one, but it's like it's the OG one for movies.
All right, fair enough.
You got a Golden Ticket moment?
I agree with the first thing you said. Stats. I mean, we've talked about math on this podcast before, but I love the mix of math and sports, and baseball is the most common breeding ground of those two things.
Really,
I think it's super interesting. It's fun to read about, fun to watch, fun to see. That easily is my golden ticket moment. Easily why I would rewatch this movie.
Jordan,
I
what
have
about
to
you?
edit what you just said. It's
Yeah.
Brad Pitt, stats, and Jonah Hill for me. I like anything that Jonah Hill's
That's
in
fair.
these
Yeah.
days. Anything he touches, I'm all in on it. We've said it before for 21 Jump Street, but like, I don't know. I just think like I don't in like thinking about that movie. Like his performance to me wasn't anything special, Jonah Hill's, but still, I just like couldn't. I still am just so happy that he like played that part because I don't know why he just portrayed it perfectly to me. Like I know like they're trying to get that like really nerdy guy in the back room with all the jocks kind of feel, but at the same time, I mean, you know, that's the person making the decisions who's correct, right? So he should command the attention, and then that's why Brad Pitt bought him because he saw the value.
It's the first time that Jonah Hill wasn't being funny, and that was kind of the reason it blew up so much. It was like, oh, hey, Jonah Hill can actually like really act, and this was right when people were realizing, oh, comedians can be funny and do like good serious roles, because Breaking Bad's in the height of it going on right now. Bryan Cranston was a comedian. We have this. We have Steve Carell starting to get a little more serious and doing serious roles.
Which he's done a lot of.
Yeah. It's at that time where people are realizing, like, oh, you can do both. Like, you can be funny and you can be taken seriously. And then Jonah Hill then later perfects it in Wolf of Wall Street, which, spoiler alert, we'll be doing in a couple weeks because I'm in the mood to watch Wolf of Wall Street. But yeah, he's really good in it. He is also, we'll go in the next part, he is my cheesiest line of the movie. It's not really a line, it's more of an action. When they do the Ricardo Rincon trade, and he's on the phone, and he's sitting there, and he's like, yes! Gets me every time. I just lose it. It breaks me out of the movie. I think it's so funny. Because I believe that's what a guy would be doing in the middle of a trade. Like, he's trying not to give up that he's excited about the trade.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But it's just...
that's what every fantasy sports player is doing. Like, oh, yeah, he did it.
That's what I was like after the first weekend of my bracket, or the first day of my bracket, and then my bracket went to absolute shit for the rest of the weekend. Freaking, I was on fire. I had like 95 percentile of my bracket after the first Friday, and then I am now at 9% percentile. That's what you get when you do zero research, when you don't look
too bad,
when you don't look at the stats, you don't think outside the box, and you just flip a coin on who you're picking each round.
It's okay. We can take your money.
I wasn't planning on winning, so it's yours. Do we have any more golden ticket moments?
Golden ticket? Cheesiest.
Cheesiest, my bad.
Yeah, the A's winning a baseball game.
The A's, we went over this when you were gone before you got
A's make the playoffs all the time. They just don't win the World Series.
Before you got traded to this podcast, we had talked about how 2 years prior they went like 98 and 98 wins. The 2000 season they almost broke 100 wins. The 2001 season they had 102 wins, and the only reason they were the wild card team that year and didn't win their division is because the Seattle Mariners won 116 games and broke the major league records for wins in a season.
So crazy.
And then the next year they won 103, then they won 98, and then they went back and won 100 the following year. Like, the early 2000 A's were stacked. They were so good.
I mean, most of the way up from then till now, they've been solid. They've never been like...
Never been like the Cubs.
But they're the cheapest bottom three payroll every single year. So.
Are they still the bottom three every single year? Or are they starting to spend a little more?
I'm pretty sure.
Because I know
I don't think they spend much more. They're certainly not above average.
Same with the Dodgers. They don't have a large payroll or anything.
Yeah.
But if we're going to be stupid, let's be smart about it. Kind of started talking about this already, so we'll just continue. Looking up how stacked the team was, does it bug you that they make it such an underdog story?
No. Because I think it is an underdog story. I mean, like we kind of talked about it earlier, that they kind of left it out of the movie, was their whole drafting and evaluating prospect process. And that was a big part of it, was these guys, yeah, in 2002 and 2001, they were MVP and Cy Young winners, but they were getting paid nothing because no one else thought they were anything special besides Billy Beane and Jonah Hill's guy.
And for those who are wondering, the MVP, everyone knows what that is. Cy Young is considered the best pitcher in baseball.
Yes.
So
thank you.
The Cy Young,
it's the most valuable pitcher and the most valuable general player, basically, is those two awards. So yeah, I mean they had stellar players, but they were players that the A's evaluated out of college and high school to be good and brought up through their system over 5 years. So it's not like these guys like came out of nowhere. It's not like they went out and signed these huge contracts. These guys were getting paid nothing because the whole baseball thought that they were nothing. So it still is an underdog story, I think.
Jordan, do you agree with that?
No, yeah, I definitely agree with that. I was just thinking about this. I was just thinking about the fact that this movie was nominated for 6 Oscars, and it's a sports movie, which, typically, I don't know why people always shit on sports movies.
Man, it got nominated for 6?
Yeah,
that's a lot.
In 2011, the 2012 Oscar year, don't get me started on this year. I happened to reach out prior to recording to our friend Ethan over at Cineflex. What up, Ethan, if you're listening? And I said, hey, did you watch The Artist? And I was like, is it better than Moneyball? And he laughed and goes, The Artist is fine. I don't think it should have won Best Oscar, but it was a perfectly good movie. And I was like, this is why I keep you around. Thanks, homie. But yeah, I reached out for that because this was the first year I really paid attention to the Oscars, and I was livid when Moneyball didn't win. Moneyball didn't win. I think it won for like best screenplay, adapted screenplay, and I think that's it. And I was heated. I was so mad. I was like, this movie's phenomenal. There's no way a black and white silent film should be winning a Best Picture Oscar in 2012. But who knows? My opinion might change. It might be a very good movie.
Or any year after 1960.
That reminds me, I need to watch Minari.
I know. Same. We'll probably be watching it on Friday. Have you ever seen a montage of walks and thought, hey, cool?
No.
They're literally telling him, like, they're having a montage, and instead of being, like, inspirational, like, training, they're like, hey, take walks. Do the most boring thing of baseball. And they somehow made it cool.
I take that back because I wish Javi Baez, the Cubs shortstop, would just take more walks. He just swings at dirt all the time. It's just like, come on, guys, like, just walk. He just needs to watch.
He's one of the best hitting short. He's one of the best hitting shortstops in baseball. He doesn't need to. You want him swinging because it's either.
No, you want him on base.
Did you not watch the movie?
It doesn't matter if you swing the bat. If you get on base, that's what matters.
No, you need a guy to. Yes. You got to drive in runs, so everyone else can do that. You need him.
You know what else gets runs in?
Strikeouts.
Not getting out.
Fly balls
gets runs.
Fly balls to right field.
Sliding.
To answer your question, yes, I have gotten excited by walks. Ever since I read Moneyball, and ever since I remember the name of the other book I was thinking of, Scorecasting. Can't remember the author of that book. Good read for any math sports nerds out there like myself. Ever since I read those books, I get more excited from walks than basically anything else besides a home run. So, yes.
I get pretty pumped for a double play, just going to be honest. So
double plays are cool. Yeah. Those are good too.
No, I've never been excited by a walk montage.
I will admit I've never watched a walk montage before.
A walk is like an okay slice of pizza. It's still pizza.
It's still pizza.
But you wish it was more. You wish it was better. That's the best way to describe a walk.
Okay. That's fair, actually. I'll give you that.
If you are having a job interview at Fenway Park, where the Boston Red Sox play, are you accepting the job right away?
No.
I would, in a heartbeat. I wouldn't even question it. I'm in Fenway Park and they're offering. I don't care.
Well, there's more to it. What if you have a 12-year-old daughter who lives in Alameda or El Paso, whatever the hell they say?
I didn't say if you had a 12-year-old daughter. I said right now, if you had an interview at Fenway Park and they offered you a job, would you take it?
If I could do it remotely and not move to Boston, sure.
Yes.
Yes. I love Boston. Boston's a great city. Shout out Boston.
But I want to be the GM of the Red Sox.
Like I know I'm an LA fan for most things, but like Boston sports fans, man, they just that's a whole nother passion, and I just appreciate it. Jake, would you wish they would have gone into the drafting process more in the book? We kind of talked about it a little bit.
You mean in the movie? Like more like they did in the book? Kind of, but like I said earlier, I think the movie's long enough already. If you add that in, that's just a whole nother layer that they'd have to dig deeper into and talk about, which would just take up more time and probably wouldn't add all that much to the kind of underdog Cinderella story. So I think it's fine without it. I think it is an important thing to understand if you really want to get a picture of what was going on in real history, in real life, but I don't think it needed to be in the movie.
Agreed. I wrote those questions down just because I was like, I'm going to ask all these important questions, because the first time I realized all the stats were wrong in this movie, it kind of bugged me. And I was like...
I didn't know that.
Oh, it's just because I felt like it was so far-fetched, and then I realized like they just took a bunch of stuff and put it in 1 year, and it was really over a 3-year span. Right. And I was like, okay, so it's real. This is all true. It's just over a different span. I was like, okay, I can get behind that.
Dramatized to make it better for a movie.
Yeah.
How it really happened was just too slow.
Which is like, there's another movie called Pain and Gain with The Rock and Mark Wahlberg. It's not a very good movie, but it's based on true events. And I watched it with my dad, and then we went back and we Googled like how much of this is true. And then we ended up watching a true crime documentary for an hour and a half after we just sat in a movie for 2 hours. So like, it was, like I said, this is right up my alley of real things, and I want to go learn more about them. So it made me laugh because I had a poster of Eric Chavez on the back of my door growing up as a kid because I was a huge Eric Chavez fan and liked how he played third base. And I was just like, he's dope, and he was really good. And then they never bring him up in this movie. It kind of irritated me.
Yeah, it is kind of weird, like just the details they left out. But I mean, like we've kind of said, it seems like something that's more suited for big sports fans who are interested in the analytic portion of sports, not the general audience.
I think the book's more for that, but I think this movie's for everyone. This is just
no. That's what I'm saying. Those details that you're saying they left out are more for the specific sports fan, not for the general population. Like that wouldn't mean anything to a lot of people who, could have watched and enjoyed this movie.
Hey, ESPN, do a 30 for 30 documentary over the 4-year span of Billy Beane taking over the A's.
Is he still the GM of the A's?
He's the vice president.
No. Yeah, he stopped being the GM like 4 years ago, something.
They were just like, hey, you did so good, you just want to run the whole organization now?
Yeah, he's like the executive vice president or something like that. Executive president of baseball operations. I don't know what the exact title, but...
All right. The only problem I have with this entire movie is they're talking about Carlos Pena and how he's playing.
What about
he's
him?
playing first base over Scott
He got traded
Hattenberg.
to the Cubs.
He got traded to the Tigers.
I'm sorry, not Carlos Pena. Who was there was one guy on there that ended up on the Cubs. Crap, who was it? I don't know. I'll remember later. It wasn't Pena though. Ooh.
Carlos Pena was the first baseman. When this movie took place, he just made his first All-Star game with the Tampa Bay Rays.
Mm-hmm.
During this season, he played in only 40 games. He batted .214 and was about to get sent down to the minors before they traded him away to the Tigers. So he was not an all-star first baseman. He was a very bad rookie that they were just wanting to get rid of to clear up cap space.
Well, I think they were saying he was going to be an all-star.
No, they said he was an all-star that year. He was batting .240. Yeah,
they
were going. He was on his way to be an all-star this year.
Yeah.
He batted .214. He's like a career batter of 220. He had one good year.
I thought they were saying he's a young guy who's going to be an all-star.
No, they were saying he was an all-star that year. Oh. He was terrible. He was super bad, and I was like, why wouldn't you play Hattenberg? Just look at the stats. The stats speak for himself.
Well, I don't think that was a thing people did in 2001.
You look at batting average in 2001.
Batting average is one of the most broken stats in all of baseball. That is not a useful stat. It's overrated. And that's the problem. They probably were looking at batting average for a lot of these people.
And if they were looking at batting averages, Hattenberg was batting considerably higher. So even back in the 2002 A's days, they should have been playing Hattenberg.
Should have been.
Just dumb. Let's rate the movie.
All right.
Go ahead, Jake. You read the book. You watched the movie now. You've been wanting to watch this movie. This is also for partly you.
Okay. So I was on the fence when I watched this movie today to either rent it or just purchase it. And I decided, you know what? I pretty much only watch movies for this podcast. There's no way I'm going to watch this movie 4 times and make it worth buying over renting. So I rented. If I could have gotten it on discount, buy it in a bargain bin, I definitely would have. And I would stick by that after watching it. I would like to watch this movie again. I don't know if I'll watch it 4 more times, but yeah, I'd go buy it in a bargain bin.
It's like fine wine. It ages better every time I watch it.
And it actually makes me want to read the book again, too.
Jordan, you came in during a mid-season trade.
Wait, sorry, better every time you watch it?
Yeah, I like it. I like it more every time I watch it. Oh, especially like now that we're doing this podcast, it's more of like a critical eye. I just realized how well of a movie it was, how well it's made, how well it's acted, how well it's written. Like from top to bottom, this is just like really good movie. And then it's baseball, and I love baseball and everything. How could I not get romantic about anything baseball?
How could you not get romantic?
How could I not? So, Jordan, what about
you? It kind of comes down to this. Like, this movie to me just, Aaron Sorkin's phenomenal.
Ooh, that's a question I forgot to ask you, Jake, but continue talking.
Well, like, here's kind of like the bottom line to me. Like, my dream job is to be a GM for an NBA team. Like, that to me, like, dude, like that would just be playing 2K in real life, right? Which is kind of ridiculous. But, like, that to me is the...
No.
Basically,
you don't get to control LeBron and he can't score 50 points a game.
No, but seriously, like that's like keeping it real. So like, what's your guys' dream job in sports? Because I know like we all love sports. So I have a feeling. I'm guessing. I mean, Mason, is yours like stadium operations?
I'm gonna slap you.
Sanitization.
I'm literally gonna slap you.
Do you want to like tell the audience about
that? I cleaned up a baseball stadium for 2 years. That's how me and Andrew met, and then I introduced Andrew to the rest of the crew. Andrew was my boss. I don't know how well of an employee I was, but I don't want to know. Hopefully, it's better now, 7 years later.
We'll never find out since Andrew got eaten by a shark.
Yeah, no, that's what I said. We lost 2 of you. We lost 2 of you last week for Jaws episodes by raptors. Andrew got eaten by a shark last week after Jaws, and now it's just me and Jake. And we had to put a baseball team together. But then we made a mid-season trade and we brought you back in. Don't worry.
Dream job in sports. That's a good question. Or
Bears. Oh man, maybe the Chicago Bears GM. Ooh, that's tough.
As much as this pains me to say, as a Steeler fan, Raven hater, I've read that Harbaugh, the Ravens head coach, has a statistician on staff to basically tell him what plays to call a win. That'd be pretty cool, I think. Just not for the Ravens.
I would just want to own the Dodgers.
That's not a job.
Got it.
That's an investor.
I just want to own them. That's dope. You want to be like Jerry Jones?
Every like sports.
Yeah, be an owner, GM,
President.
coach, whatever the heck you want to be.
Every sports thing I had growing up as a kid
Not the coach.
that I wanted to do, it was like I wanted to play quarterback for USC and have like taped fingers and look ridiculous and be
Taped fingers was a part of your.
Oh
dream?
yeah. Every
specific.
NCAA character quarterback I made, instead of gloves, he had taped fingers. Don't ask me why.
That's hilarious.
He was also always like 6'5", 250, and just looked like LeBron James playing quarterback. It's basically what I made every guy to look like.
What number was it?
11, because Matt Leinart was my hero. Shout out Matt Leinart if you're listening to the podcast, which I guarantee you're not. Welcome. I'll just do a one-on-one episode with just you, and I'll just drool on myself a little bit that I'm talking to my childhood idol. That, or I always played left field or pitched in whatever baseball game I played. So I guess, or just for the sake of this, I wear contacts and glasses. I was a huge Eric Gagne fan during this time, early 2000s. I would just be the closer for the Dodgers. That'd be my dream sports job.
So being a player.
Yeah. Like I said, the moment I realized how much that a GM actually had to do in this movie, I was like, yeah, I could never do a GM. It's just, I'm not organized enough. It's not happening. Anyone who's listened to this podcast and realized I'm the person that's supposed to get us to point A and point B realizes that we hit every other letter in the alphabet before we get to B. So
I see what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, just I don't need to be in charge. It's just not something I need to do.
All right.
Did you give a rating, Jordan? I don't know. I feel like I cut you off.
I mean, it's like, I guess the rewatchability of this movie is very high due to like the cast as well, because Philip Seymour Hoffman, R.I.P. Chris Pratt before Chris Pratt was Chris Pratt, and yeah, I mean, I would give this like 4 out of 5 stars.
So you'd buy it in the bargain bin because you're gonna just keep messing up the ratings.
There you go.
That's cool. Jake, did you notice anything with the writing with this compared to Social Network? And
Just like the pacing.
Yeah, this Social Network and Trial of Chicago 7 were all written by Aaron Sorkin.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
No, I can't say that I've ever explicitly thought about the writing of a movie. I've noticed the pacing, like we talked about with
Mank and 7.
Yeah, and just David Fincher in general, but I can't say I've ever like explicitly noticed writing differences, styles, and that kind of stuff.
All right, that's it. Oh, no. Jordan, did this remind you of West Wing at all?
Yeah, so I'm almost done with West Wing. I got just a few more episodes to go. No, not really. It's just, I'm a big Aaron Sorkin fan, but like they're so different, but at the same time they're not. The president, Billy Bean's the GM. He kind of is everyone's boss. I just think Aaron Sorkin just places like words and like with such meaning. Like, I don't know how to put it, but like, just comes down to like the words typically carry weight, and I just like that. It just makes it more like, oh, okay, like I have to pay attention to what I'm watching, listening to.
All right. Like I said, I watched this movie a bunch when it was on Netflix, like probably 8 or 9 times. I wouldn't, however, put in like the top. Like if I want to in the mood to watch a sports movie, this is the sports movie I'm putting in. So I'd probably have to say buy in a bargain bin. Saying I did walk by a bargain bin the other day, and this was on the outside of the bargain bin, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go look for it, and I couldn't find it.
Bummer.
But yeah, I'd definitely buy it in the bargain bin. It's pushing instant classic. That being said, I don't know if I'd ever show my kids this, because at this point, when I have kids, everything in sports will be numbers. So they'll
You're right. This is going to be mainstream.
Yeah, they'll probably already know, and I'll be like, whatever. So yeah, buy in a bargain bin. I liked it a lot. I think it's really good. Makes me excited for baseball.
Wow. Consistent ratings all the way across the board. Yeah, I'm ready to watch some baseball.
It's just, we went full on, I think, 7, Gone Girl, I went on full on movie nerd, and this episode we went full on. Let's talk about
Sports fan.
Let's talk about baseball stats for an hour.
Yeah.
But
You're right. Maybe that was a little bit too baseball statty and not enough
I don't care.
movie.
Everyone loved it. This was the.
I had a good
This was
time.
the episode. Everyone was like, more than ever, like, oh, this is why they're friends. They probably just sat in a room and talked baseball stats for like an hour and a half, and you'd be 100% correct. We have done that.
We did do that.
I'm pretty sure our
yes.
first sports argument was about it. It was like, who's the best pitcher in baseball? And I'm pretty sure I was just like, it's Justin Verlander. And Mason was just like, for everyone out there, maybe you guys already talked about this. Mason's has a thing for Clayton Kershaw, and it's raging. And yeah, Mason was very upset that I.
It enters the room before the rest of me enters the room.
Yep.
Oh, God.
Clayton Kershaw in the early 2000s, 10s, was the best pitcher in baseball, hands down.
All right.
Until 2017, when Verlander then went to the Astros. And then
We don't need to start this conversation now.
Then Verlander once again became the best pitcher in baseball.
Okay. Anyway.
But Clayton Kershaw's great. Moneyball's awesome. If you want to get introduced to baseball and you're not sure if you like it, great movie to watch. Remember to like, leave a review, follow us on Instagram. Any other thing I can't think of due to social
Twitter.
media.
Subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Twitter. I'm trying to tweet,
Twat.
but like, bear with me, guys. I'm not a big social media person, so that one's really going out of the tweeting is going outside of my comfort zone more than most.
All right.
Well, I hope you guys all enjoy. Remember, keep it real. See you next week.
Keep it real.
Keep it real. I stumbled over my words. Give me a break.
Keep it real.
See you later.